Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à ma nouvelle chaîne vidéo dans laquelle je vous apprends le français ou ce que je sais de la français. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous parler de la phonétique. And actually, I'm going to speak in English today because it's easier for me to explain pronunciation, particularly in French and English, I think. And it's also, this isn't meant to be a video in which I teach words or in which I explain different words that I've learned. It's more about explaining different things that are very difficult, especially for English speakers to learn when they're pronouncing French words. So as usual, I'm going to give you a website that is very useful when you're learning or trying to figure out pronunciation. And so the website that I've found to be the most useful when trying to learn how to pronounce words while learning French has been, and I think it works for many, if not all languages out there. It's called forvo.com. And basically what you can do is you can go on this website, type in a word, and there will be recordings of native speakers pronouncing that word on this website. And so when you access those, you can try to imitate that as best as you can and try to really hear the differences, because sometimes, well, definitely a lot of languages have sounds that we as English speakers don't ever make. And so it can be hard to practice those, but if you're alone, it's less embarrassing to practice than when you are talking to somebody who speaks that language particularly. So again, forvo.com. And so if you have any questions, and in fact, I'm going to try my best to do some of the pronunciation of the things that I find hard in French, but you should probably, after this video, check out the real the real pronunciation, because I'm sure that the people I know that the people who upload recordings onto Forvo do a lot better of a job pronouncing French than I do. So let's get started. The first major distinction that I want to talk about is the distinction between OU and U. In French, there's a difference between OU and U that is a vowel sound. The U is a vowel sound that you probably aren't familiar with, and so the OU sounds like oo, and that's a sound that we make in English, oo, you, uh, it's like more rounded than like true, but it's pretty much the same sound. It's kind of the sound you think of when you think of the letter U in English. Whereas the letter U in French is a completely new sound that we almost never, if not never, make. And that sounds more like U, U, oo, U, oo. And so this is a really important distinction actually, because it can change the meaning of a word. For instance, là-dessus and là-dessous, ou dessous, dessous means under, and dessus means above. And so if you aren't accustomed to hearing the difference between those two things, it can be really confusing if somebody's telling you where something is, because you have to really hear the difference between the OU and the U sounds. And so that's something that you should practice and you should get accustomed if you're learning French too, because it can be really difficult, especially when people are speaking quickly, to both do and to hear. And this also goes for the word tu. A lot of people, a lot of English speakers that I hear speaking French, and I think I definitely also do this sometimes too, say tout, for example, like tu fais quoi? That's wrong. That would be all. That T-O-U-T is what you're saying. If you say tu fais quoi, that's right. Tu fais quoi, not right. So it's an important distinction, and if you kind of master it as best as you can, your French will sound a lot more native than otherwise. Okay, so the next distinction that is also, well, it's a little less important, I think, because there's no real, because there's an equivalent sound in English, but it's not the same sound, is the R. So the French R is very different from the American R, but if you kind of stray into the American R, French speakers will know what you're saying. You'll just sound less natural. Yeah, so it's made with a throat. It's a sound that's made with a throat most of the time, and there's kind of two ways it can sound. So one of them is air, and the other one is more like raspy, I guess. It's like bonjour, or like let me think of a word. Rebonjour. So it can sound either like air, which is more close, I guess, but it's still made in the back of the mouth instead of the front when you make the English R or American R. Uh, it's R, and I don't do it perfectly, so you should definitely look up other people saying it. Um, but it's something you if you want to sound more natural, you should definitely work on as best as you can, and then I don't think I mean, depending on your age, but I don't think you're ever really going to sound perfect with this sound. But if you try, it can be at least appreciated, I think. So yeah, the next sound or set of sounds actually that I want to talk about is the nasal vowels. Also something that we don't do, at least, yeah, I don't think it really exists in English. And so there are three sets of nasal vowels. There's the ON sound, the AN sound, which can also be spelled and is often also spelled with an EN, and the IN sound, which is also often including the article spelled with a UN. So it's ON, AN/EN, IN/UN. And these three sounds sound different. So the first one is and this is also a pronoun that can be used to say we or kind of like passive voice. But I'm not going to get into the grammar there. And then it's also in a lot of words. A good example is in English letters that end with tion or shun, but in French it is not an sh sound and it is not a n sound at the end. It's a nasalized vowel, so it's sion, on. Uh, okay, and so yeah, so look that up because I don't do it perfectly either. The next sound is the an sound, which is on. Ça fait un an, un. Again, I don't do it perfectly, so you should definitely look it up and try to get as close as you can by yourself. And then the last one is a sound that you're going to have to make a lot because it means a or an or one, which is un. C'est un truc, c'est un. And that's the IN or the UN sound. So those are three things that you should definitely practice as you're speaking, because if you there is a distinction if you say it kind of like the English way. If you say un or on or in, that will be understood differently. That can make the word feminine. That can make it a different word. That's particularly important for a lot of animals, like chien and chien don't mean the same thing. Chien means dog, and chien means bitch. So you don't want to confuse those or mess those up necessarily, because even if they know you're an English speaker, um, if you accidentally say a swear in front of somebody, it can still just kind of rub them the wrong way. So it's not something you want to do. And the last, okay, so we'll move on to the last set of sounds. The last set of sounds that's difficult, that nobody really talked to me about in any of my French courses, but that is equally kind of bizarre, I think, for Anglophones, and it's kind of hard to hear, is the set of sounds ILLE, which can sometimes be pronounced eel, which is normal to English speakers, I think, but it can also be pronounced differently, so we'll get into that. The EILLE, and the OUILLE. It's hard for me to make these sounds, but I'm going to try my best. So, fille, you kind of, instead of saying the L's, they turn into like a Y, and then there's an E at the end, so it's Y at the end. So fille would be the ILLE one. Pareil, pareil. And it's so people, a lot of people, and I heard this for a long time too. It kind of sounded when it was said really fast. It sounded like parai, parai, I, but it's not I. It's a, parai, parai. And then the last one, which is the hardest to make, is Ouille. And so an example word would be débrouille. And so those are kind of hard. I don't really have any tips. You just have to kind of practice. I think it's all sounds that you're capable of making, but you should know that these sounds exist, and you should know that you have to pronounce it that way, because that was never really clarified to me in any of my courses. And so, yeah, just be aware, hear it, say it correctly. Don't say I. Uh, yeah. There are a lot of other differences between French pronunciation and pronunciation of English words in the English language, obviously. The best way to practice, I think, is to look up the words and just say it as close as you can possibly hear it to the way that the word is said in the recording. And just keep doing that until you feel like it sounds right. And if you have access to French speakers or a French teacher, keep saying it until they are satisfied with it, and tell them, don't say, am I saying it right? Say, please let me know if I'm making a mistake. Even if it's the smallest mistake, don't let it pass. Tell me that I'm making a mistake and make me fix it, because that's the way you're going to get your pronunciation better. It's not going to get better if the people around you just accept that you have an accent, because it's easy to do that. In English, we accept other people's accents too. And we, even if it sounds a little wrong or people say things a little wrong to us, we aren't going to sit there and correct them. So you need to have somebody sit there and correct you if you want to work on your pronunciation and you want to get better there. So yeah, it's a lot of tough work. It can be embarrassing work, but you can also do a lot of it alone. You just have to really listen to yourself and make sure that you are honest with yourself about how close you are to saying it correctly. But it can be hard because there are things that are hard to hear, for sure. So that's when you kind of have to bring in somebody else. Okay, so that's the end. That's all I have to say. This video's gotten kind of long, so I'm going to cut it off here. But hopefully this lesson has been useful, and in the future I'm going to do more things that are more geared toward learning words that you might not learn in a course, or learning different ways of speaking that you might not learn in a course, because I found in my courses that there were a lot of contractions and a lot of different words that are really common everyday words that you wouldn't learn. And so in this area that I feel is lacking in French education, I'm going to try to fill in the gaps through these videos. So okay, have a good day everybody.